the home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Black cowboy hat, college football banner, action. Boy, oh boy, that old coaching carousel is warming up. And it all started in Lincoln, Nebraska, and made its way down to Sun Devil Stadium in Arizona State and Herm Edwards. And there's no telling who else is going to be on board pretty soon with firing their coaches mid-season or even early season. Probably Auburn will be next. But back to Lincoln, Nebraska, where it all started, where that carousel is just a twirling. And now it seems as though, according to Bruce Feldman of The Athletic, that they've narrowed their choices down to 3 top candidates, but also have 2 surprise candidates that maybe the Cornhuskers need to look at. Let's talk about it. Go again on our own, like that old White Snake song that I like to reference, probably way too much, but I love it. Now, getting right to it, I am the OCF. That is the Outlaw of College Football, also known as JPC, which stands for Jesse Paul Clark on Facebook, spelled Jesse without the I. That's right. And I'm on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it, seems like that old carousels twirling like hell, man. We already had 2 major programs dismiss their coaches with Nebraska and Arizona State. But Nebraska is the most intriguing one because, as we all know, Nebraska is an old, forgotten, traditional power that used to win national championships on the regular before this century. So we'd all like, in a way, in a nostalgic type way, to see Nebraska get back to where they need to be. Well, Bruce Feldman has said that Nebraska has actually zeroed in on 3 candidates. Now, the first one is the captain obvious choice. That's Matt Campbell at Iowa State. That's the one that I first said when I done my little 1 minute and 30-second breaking news on this story when it first came out about a week and a half ago. So Matt Campbell, of course, and now they're talking about Lance Leopold of Kansas because of his recent success and how he's been able to win at Kansas. Now, last year Kansas went, I think it was 3-9 or 2-10 or something like that. But they showed so much promise last year that their administration actually gave the man a 1-year extension. It was probably one of the best 3-9 jobs I've ever seen. They beat Texas and they almost beat a number of teams. They were real close within 1 score of 3 or 4 teams last year, including Oklahoma. So Lance Leopold may be a good selection, but I've seen this movie before where people get ahead of themselves and coaches only had like 1 or 2 years to prove himself. And he's only really had one season to prove himself, and now the first 3 games of this year. But it does look promising. And right now at this point, anything has got to be better than Scott Frost and Mickey Joseph and their lineage of former Nebraska quarterbacks that they keep hiring. I don't know who the quarterback was before Mickey Joseph, but let's let the Nebraska quarterback hiring thing go out the window, Cornhuskers, and zero on these 3 candidates that you're talking about. Bill O'Brien was the other one, the offense coordinator at Alabama. He's been a decent coordinator at Alabama. He hasn't been overwhelming, in my opinion. I'm an Alabama fan. But his resume as a whole is very impressive to me. He done decent at the Houston Texans with what he was having to deal with management and players and whatnot. I mean, a lot of these coaches, like Nick Saban and Steve Spurrier, they just can't gel with these diva players and these asinine owners and administrators at the pro level. But Bill O'Brien, his most impressive thing he done was take Penn State after the Sandusky situation, when the NCAA basically almost put them on the death penalty, took away a lot of their wins. They even took down Joe Pa's statue because everybody thinks he sort of knew about that stuff. and basically crippled the program. And yet this guy was able to muster them up to 8-4 with a team that had lost a lot of players that transferred out. They didn't even have to wait a year because the NCAA made an extenuating circumstance clause for them. And basically, he should have probably only won 3 or 4 games that year at most. And so the man knows how to come into controversial situations or downtrodden situations and build a program back up. And that's probably exactly what Nebraska needs right now. And it's not like you're just going out and getting a hot name coordinator. The guy has proven himself as a head coach already. So, in my opinion, of those 3, I know it might surprise some people, but of those 3, if I was Nebraska, I would go after Bill O'Brien because he can build a program. If you're patient with him, I think he can build a program and put Nebraska back on the map. Maybe not winning national championships, but at least contending for the Big Ten title. And that in itself will eventually lend to playing for national championships. Now, there's 2 other candidates out there that I'd like to mention for Nebraska fans to chew on, and maybe you can pass along to your administrators and put these names in their ear. Bobby Hauck of the Montana Grizzlies. He was a great coach at Montana back in the early 2000s. Led them to numerous playoff appearances on the FCS level or the FBI level or the 1AA, CIA level, whatever acronym they call it these days. Yeah, I know. I take a jab at that every time I get a chance. But, yeah, he done really well at Montana in his first stint there. Then he had a dabbling with trying to get to the Division 1A level and coach the UNLV Rebels, which to me was a bad move by Bobby. I think he's a great coach. I think he'd be a good coach with the right opportunity. But coaching some of these lower level of the dung programs like a UNLV or New Mexico State or somebody like that, that's just a death sentence for a lot of coaches. You have to be an extraordinarily great coach to win in those situations. I don't even know if Bear Bryant or Nick Saban could win with those teams. So he's back with the Montana Grizzlies. So they hired him for a second stint. So obviously the Montana administration has been very impressed with him. They've hired him twice. So I think Bobby Hauck is a guy that Nebraska should look at. I can't even speak today. Stumbling and bumbling. And the last candidate that a lot of people have brought up, but they've sort of cooled off on him here as of late, and I'm not sure why, because they're still doing rather well. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they're still undefeated this year, and that's the Coastal Carolina. I can't even say their nickname, Chanticleers. But Jamie Chadwell of Coastal Carolina has built a program that really was non-existent. It's sort of like the whole Mario Cristobal Florida International situation where he built them up. And I think before him, it might have been, was that Florida Atlantic? It might have been Florida Atlantic with Howard Schnellenberger. But Jamie Chadwell has been able to build a program up from nothing really. And if he can do that at a program like Coastal Carolina, just imagine what he could do with a program like Nebraska with the facilities and the booster and all that stuff that they got going with the booster support that Nebraska has to go along with their program. I think Jamie Chadwell would be a nice little steal if Nebraska would decide to interview the guy or take him seriously. But that's my top 5 candidates. I'm going to get up out of here before I trip over my tongue and swallow my tonsils or something, because I can't seem to speak straight today. And I promise you, I ain't been in the tequila yet. So, anyway, that's all I got to say about that. A little hard option underneath here. If you don't mind, hit that thanks button, because here's of late they've been putting me on limited ads because they say that my content is not appropriate or it's too controversial and that kind of crap. But anyway, let's get out of here. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.